for inviting the Satellite Applications Catapult to speak twice at this event. So I'll just be handing over from Momin to give you a little bit more of a background about the Satellite Applications Catapult. But before I do that, I think it's always nice, as Momin did, to give sort of a little bit of a background about my journey into the space sector. So I have somewhat of a traditional background into the space industry. So I've followed that science and engineering path. So that is with a master's degree in physics, then leading on to a master's degree in space engineering and astronautics. Following that, I worked for a couple of years in the space industry as a systems engineer at Teledyne TV, before then going back to academia, where I did a PhD in astrophysics, until earlier this year, where I'm now a knowledge exchange manager at the Satellite Applications Catapult. So I am one of these cases where it's the fairly traditional route, but as plenty of other people have already stressed, that is not the kind of carbon copied single route into the space sector. And there are multiple routes, and I'll speak about some of those in the next few slides. So just to give you a little bit more of an overview of what the Catapult is and who we are. So our mission at the Satellite Applications Catapult is to help organizations realize the potential for space technology and satellite data for a range of applications, ultimately to create a better world for everybody. And we're an innovation technology company, so research technology organization, specializing in satellite technology and data applications. Ultimately, we're here to help organizations harness space technology and satellite data, and driven by how our actions help the organizations that we work with, doing this by energizing the market, empowering technology, and enabling businesses. And our focuses are around sort of three technical areas that are highlighted there on the right hand side, and then we also have several market areas. So these we call value streams. So on the right hand side there's ubiquitous connectivity, so that's all around satellite communications, and having this completely always on ubiquitous connected world. Then we have the geospatial intelligence team, so that's all about remote sensing and Earth observation. So trying to give a global real-time data availability, and how do we analyze that data. And then we have the access to space guys, and they're all about the launch and manufacture side of the space sector. And through those, we also have in-orbit demonstrator missions. And along the bottom, this then shows the range of areas that we, the different markets that we employ satellite data and technology into. So as Momin's already mentioned a couple of these, but we also have at the bottom there, so we have transport, we have agriculture, marine and maritime, the energy sectors. We also have sustainability and looking at green energy, and health and well-being. So all of these we're trying to integrate satellite connectivity, Earth observation, just to try to increase the space sector in the UK. And there are many cliches about what's needed to work in the space sector. Quite often people think, oh, you have to have done, an engineering background or a science background, but there's more than meets the eye. There's no concrete rules. There's a variety of roles that are required in the space sector. So there is more than meets the eye. And it's well accepted that the best kinds of teams are multidisciplinary teams with a range of backgrounds and experience. So I think that's quite an important thing to have, and the Satellite Applications Catapult has that. So as an analogy to try and share with you how important I think that is, I put together this little rocket launch analogy. So you can't launch a rocket without multiple teams, and typically space sector businesses can't operate without multiple teams. So first of all, the payload. So when launching a rocket, ultimately you're trying to put something into space, and that's the payload. Quite often people think about the space sector and they think about these technical teams, and at the Catapult we have these technical teams. So they were the ones I was mentioning before, those geospatial intelligence team, the connectivity team. So they're engineers and scientists with a range of technical experience, covering upstream, so putting things into space, downstream, what you're doing with the data and the things that are coming down to Earth, and the midstream, the things that you're doing on orbit. And without these, it's true that the catapult couldn't deliver on its projects and mission goals, and that's just like a payload. When you put a payload into space, if you don't put the payload into space, it can't do the thing that it's intending to do, that mission. But behind that, driving the payload and driving for ourselves the catapult is this engine and control, or GNC there, which is guidance, navigation, and control for rockets. So you can't put a payload into space if it wasn't for a huge rocket with an engine on it and without telling it where it needs to go, and that's handled by these control systems. And it's the same with the catapult. So we've got several business support services at the catapult that drive the space sector growth. So that's like business strategy and our regional growth team. But also what's really unique about the catapult is that we have a user-centered design team. And these are a team of designers. And quite often people think about that and they think, that's a bit bizarre that we've got designers working in a space company. But is a really unique selling point, and these designers are there to help facilitate workshops, also showcase how design principles can help with thinking when developing new ideas and technologies and capabilities, but also just bring kind of out of the box thinking, and that thinking really helps the catapult to be quite innovative. So that's right about the engine and driving the space sector growth. But then we also have the guidance and control, and that's those market teams. So as I showed on the bottom before, that we put satellite applications into several markets. And that's really, the market teams that we have guide those directions. So where do we put this satellite data and technology, and and how is it applicable? So that's really navigating those different markets to put satellite applications data into those areas. And those teams have a range of technical and non-technical people in them, with a variety of routes into their roles. So we have, for instance, in the agriculture team, we have people that come from backgrounds working in Sainsbury's, and who are now working at the Satellite Applications Catapult as satellite solutions architects, looking at how to incorporate satellite data into the agriculture supply chain. And then finally, I think that we probably all understand that you can't launch a rocket without a ground segment, because we've seen time and time again these mission operations centers where you have lots of people on the ground who are speaking to one another and ensuring that everything's running well and running smoothly. And it's the same for us at the catapult as well. So at the catapult, we have these ancillary support services like finance and legal services, human resources, market and communications, and there are plenty of other teams as well, including, say, the receptionists that I've not mentioned there. And there's a variety of expertise, roles and routes into those roles, and without them the catapult couldn't operate day to day. And that's just like with launching a rocket. If you don't have these ground segments, you couldn't launch the rocket either. So I think it's really important to note just the wide variety of roles and routes into those roles that there are in the space sector. So just to finish up on a couple of exciting things, so key opportunity areas. So just to give you a little bit of information about some of the things that the catapult's looking at for the next 10 years or so. So key opportunity areas for growth in the UK space sector. So one of those areas is connectivity and positioning. So looking at the next generation of network. So we're already moving on to 5G, but what comes beyond that? And with that, there's a whole load of new developments that are required in antennae and optical communications. Also, there's then the in-orbit economy. So there's a lot of conversations being had at the moment around in-orbit services and manufacturing. Also, space-based solar power. So how can we harness that solar energy and beam that back down to Earth? Around geospatial intelligence, GI, and Earth observation, EO, as I mentioned, there's this concept of having a queryable Earth. So if we're having a global coverage of Earth observation, we can then access at any time information about something that's happening on the other side of the Earth. And there's lots of new developments that will be required, including quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, and there's infrastructure both in space but also on the ground. And all of this can then get applied into various different end user markets. So that can be sustainable supply chains, the environment, social and governance and finance, connected vehicles and renewable energy, and that's not exhaustive in any way. And just to sort of wrap up, so it's been mentioned a couple of times already, but at the Catapult, we work with the Space Agency to deliver the Space Placements and Industry Scheme, so the SPIN scheme, that's designed to provide an introductory link for undergraduate and postgraduate students that are considering employment in the space sector. So projects can be in any area of the business. So these don't have to be technical. They can be non-technical projects as well. And they are, intended to be suitable for undergraduate and postgraduate students in a relevant discipline to their studies. And there are a host of benefits, including looking great on the CV, developing your networks, and enabling your learning. So I'll stop there with that. My details are there, and if anybody wants to contact me, please feel free to do so, and I'd happily field any questions that you've got. So thanks again for inviting me to talk. Cheers.